Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney. And I had to click record because Mark and I just could have gone forever because we're talking about RVing. But, you know, the name of the podcast is Construct Your Life. And before you tell your story, Mark, how many people do you meet when they find out you're RVing and they go, man, I've dreamed of that my whole life?
I hear it a lot.
I say and you can do it too.
That's true for the most part, but people get in their own way.
That's an amazing point. And when you were young, you got in your own way. So do you want to tell us about the story of Mr. Owens?
I'll try to keep it short because it goes on and on. So I grew up in Baltimore City, blue collar neighborhood. Most of the guys that I hung out with, their dream was to get a job driving a forklift at a factory, and then you're set for life. Buy a little row house to live in, have 1.7 kids and a old Ford, and that was it. And that was fine with me. I always thought there was more, but that was my neighborhood's expectation. And then when I was around 12 years old, I started smoking weed and cigarettes. And in my neighborhood, that's kind of the norm. So a lot of times people are shocked by it, but in Baltimore City, in those types of neighborhoods, that was kind of the average stuff. And that progressed and really got out of hand. I didn't know it at the time, but I was a drug addict. And when I was 17 years old, I got kicked out of high school in my senior year. Started, shooting coke and heroin when I was, 17. And once you get into that lifestyle, then that takes that's a whole different set of problems that creates. And so I spent the next 8 years in and out of jails, rehabs, sleeping in what we call bandos, abandoned houses, under bridges, whatever. And I'd been periods of homeless in West Hollywood, California, Jacksonville, Florida, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and I was getting a lot of trouble. I was getting locked up for some stupid stuff and some serious stuff. And when it finally ended in September of 1989, the last time I got locked up, I had a bank robbery in Philadelphia, a couple of dozen commercial robberies in the state of Maryland, and then some other stuff that's stolen cars and stuff like that, stuff that, when you compare it to that, it's nothing, just a bunch of stupid stuff like that. And I got locked up September 89. About a month later, I tried to escape out of the detention center because I wasn't done. I was just getting arrested was never part of my equation. My equation was get high, get shot, overdose. That was how it was going to end. It wasn't going to be going to prison for years. And so I tried to escape. I say fortunately now I didn't. I'm glad I tried, because once I got called, I got put on lockup for 6 months where you're in a cell by yourself for 23 hours a day. And so it gave me, a lot of time to think without getting distracted, playing spades or poker, watching TV or all the other dumb stuff that you're doing out on the pod. And my attorney came to see me. And I'm going to tell you verbatim, the conversation exactly as I remember it. We sat across the steel table in the little, attorney prisoner room. And he looked over at me and he said, man, what the fuck is wrong with you? Can't you even stay out of trouble in jail? You're already locked up. And then he said, don't you realize that if you do what you're supposed to do, you can be home by the time you're 30 years old. You'll be young enough to start a whole new life. And of course I felt, I could just feel myself shrinking on the inside as he's telling me that I'm an idiot. And I knew what he was saying was true. I was I grew up with a normal family for the most part. That was, nobody else in my family was doing the stuff I was doing. I knew better. And over the next few days, I thought about what he said, and I hadn't given that really any thoughts before he said that, because I'd already tried rehabs, I tried churches, I tried moving to different states, I tried like girlfriends that are like normal, like I tried everything I could think of, and nothing worked. And I just thought that that was it. And once he said that, I thought, okay, I got to do the time. He said I can be home by the time I'm 30. I was about 24 at the time. And I thought, well, you know what? Let me figure this out. I got plenty of time to think, plenty of time to work on my stuff. And I'm going to put myself in the best position that I can. So when I do get out, I can have a good start, a fresh start to build up like a normal life. And it was about 4 years and 8 or 9 months later that I got out. And that was June of '94. So that's been like, I can't even do the math, almost 30 years. And I've been doing good ever since. It's like I married my high school sweetheart, had an amazing son. I started out when I got out of prison, I was making $6 an hour working in a factory. And I enrolled in University of Maryland, Baltimore County, and I was actually a biochem major, which most of my friends are shocked to hear that I would be interested in that. But I'd always liked the sciences. And then I saw there weren't any jobs in that, and I got into computer stuff. And then I went from the computer stuff to, I started making really good money, and I started buying rental properties with the intention of, if I lose my computer job, I've still got money coming in to pay my mortgage and put food on the table. My wife quit her job. She didn't work for 5 years. We had her son, and she wanted to stay home with him. And then, and she wanted to go back to school. She had a bachelor's degree, but she wanted to become a registered nurse. So she had to get back to school for a couple of years. And I was making enough money where, back then, this is like 2000, 2001, 2002, I was making around 130 to 150 a year, which it's good today, but back then, that was like really good money. And I'd saved and saved and saved. I was really financially like responsible. Like as my income increased, I didn't increase my like living expenses that much. If my income went up 50%, I increased my cost of living 10%. And so that gave me the ability to like save a lot of money. And I tried the stock market stuff, and I just felt like that was like more of a casino than anything. When the market's going up, everybody's making money. And when the market crashes, everybody's losing money. And it's like, you don't have a whole lot of, you don't have a lot of control over the market ups and downs. And you can try to time the market, but for the most part, people lose when they do that. And I'd realized that, and I decided that rental properties were the way for me to go, just to supplement my income. And that didn't even supplement my income. Like all the money just stayed in the bank. But I thought if I, get hit by a bus or whatever, that at least there's enough coming in, for my wife to, maintain like a basic standard of living. And that's how the whole real estate thing started. But I will shut up because you might have some questions.
No, I love it. A story I've never shared on the podcast. Nobody's ever heard it. Actually, only 2 people have ever heard it. Probably my ex-wife and somebody else. I wasn't doing it to do it, but like, it just so happened that I started selling weed when I was like 19. Mm-hmm. And it just was like, I was in an area that couldn't get it. I could get it. So I just started selling weed. It's not a big deal. Everybody at the restaurant smoked weed. That was fine. And he goes, yeah, you're making some real money, but you could be really making some real money if you sell cocaine. And so I went and got it. It's in the back of my trunk. I get to work and I open the trunk and I look at the cocaine, and this is the exact thought that came through my head. If you do this, that's a different level. There's no turning back. And I literally shut the trunk, drove right back to Houston, and handed it right back over. And I think to myself, how different would my life be?
That's probably one of the best decisions that you ever made. Because if I knew you had that cocaine in your trunk, I would. I mean, I robbed a lot of drug dealers.
That's a great point. It's not about the money or what you would do. It's the people that you would be in business with.
Yes.
the ramifications of that nobody talks about.
Oh, it's that, and it's also if you get caught. If you get caught with a quarter pound of weed, most places, you're not going to go to jail for 10 years. You get caught with 4 ounces of cocaine, you're going to be going to prison.
And it is crazy, right? Because something you said to me really hit me, right? My dad was a doctor. I lived on a country club. I lived next to basketball players for the Rockets. Like, we were in a nice neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And yet I got introduced, my parents divorced when I was 17. I got introduced to cocaine that turned into meth, that turned into, I was homeless, that whole thing. And then was an alcoholic for 20 years. I've been sober for 4 years and 3 months. But you as well, you had a family and it was fine. And there was nothing too crazy. There's so many people that I've helped or that are listening to that are in recovery that have spiraled, right? And mm-hmm. I realized that when you really start fixing yourself, it's when you protect against the spiral.
Absolutely. Yes. So I want to share something, and because this is like a kind of like, I really gave you like a really short version of what happened, but there were three major things that happened that changed everything. The first one is I got arrested. And I'm actually friends with that cop today. I got his number in my phone. Where I found him on Facebook like 15 years ago and just, apologized to him and, told him I'm really sorry for all the shit that I did. And you saved my life. And I really, really appreciate it. And I'm doing good today. And we've met since then. And last time we talked on the phone was probably a year and a half ago. But I've got his number. And if he ever needed me, I'd be there in a minute. So the first thing that happened was I got locked up. And then the second thing that happened was my attorney inspired me. And I actually called him about a year ago. And he couldn't remember who I was. And I just said, listen, you were also one of these people that saved my life. You said this, and I recounted the story. And he was like really surprised to hear from me. It's been years and years. He actually had me on speaker so his whole office could hear the conversation. And I can imagine when he went home for dinner that night and he's sitting down with his wife at dinner, he probably said, well, guess what happened to me today?
Yeah. You know what's funny? That just happened to me last week. A guy, when I was living in a closet at a friend's house, my first mentor ever, I haven't spoke to him in 15 to 20 years. He ran into a mutual buddy of ours, and he said he's a pastor now and runs a company. And he said, I've always wondered about this young kid that I was trying to help see that he was better than he was. Mm-hmm. And I connected with him and told him he goes, dude, he's got 100,000 downloads. He's running companies. He's like, oh, and he started crying. And I sent him a message and he goes, I've always wondered if you actually listened to what I said. And I talked about all the things he taught me. He allowed me to be me and all this stuff. He played it in front of his congregation and then put it on the podcast. And you could tell everybody was just like, and I'm like, oh my God, what a moment.
And I feel like right now, just listening to the story, it's like, when people touch our lives and make a difference, I want them to know. I want them to know that they didn't waste their time. You really made a difference in my life. And I think that, that just encourages people to keep doing it.
Why do you think, I know, I don't know mentally where you were, but I could see the steps because I've been there myself and people I've helped. Why do you think you finally listened to the attorney?
Well, you know what? Here's what happened. He inspired hope. And so I was going to say that, there was three things. The first thing was I got locked up. The second thing was the attorney inspired me. And I was sitting there in the cell, and I'm just like, all right, well, how am I going to do this? Because, I've tried everything I can do. I know something happens because other people get it together. So I know this is something that's possible. The girl that I was, a woman now, that I was with when I got arrested in the stolen car just after robbing a store, we were on our way back to a motel to get high. And, a month after I got locked up, she got clean. And she was with her new boyfriend, was the first guy I ever shot coke with. And he had gotten he was a couple months clean, and I didn't know anybody that was a couple months clean. That was like, what? He was a junkie, and now he's hasn't done any drugs in 2 months. That was just mind boggling to me. But what it did was it gave me hope. It showed me that it can be done.
Mark, dude, it's like It's like I'm looking into here, story. I joined a mastermind. I started a business with two guys that were 9 months and 13 months sober.
Mhm.
They were making 250 grand plus a year in their jobs and investing in real estate. And I say this statement all the time. People think I'm crazy. It was the first time I ever met two successful guys sober.
Right. Right.
And they allowed me the freedom to say, hey, man, if you thought about it, and hear me out, I lost $30,000 in that business. I'll do it again and again and again because they're the reason I got sober. One of the reasons.
Mm-hmm. I understand it. And people, like, what happens is, like, people that achieve that, and it doesn't just have to be like alcohol and drugs. It can be just like other successful in other ways. You have the ability to inspire people without even doing anything on purpose. You're just doing, working your program or whatever it is, but the life that you create, other people see it and it inspires them. And in this case, it gave me fuel, like the rocket fuel. It was just more fuel in my rocket to get me where I want to go. And there was a third piece that I didn't mention yet. And that was, after I got off lockup, there was a book laying on I got in the general population. There was a book laying on one of the tables, and I went over and picked it up. And the book was called "You Can If You Think You Can," and the author's name was Norman Vincent Peale, who I later found out was more famous for writing a book called "The Power of Positive Thinking." Yep. And this is April of 1990, and I picked up the book and I looked at it and I'm just like, you can become anything you want to be. And like, it's all this like self-help stuff. And I didn't even know they had self-help books. I mean, it was 1990, it's like, I didn't even know there was any of this kind of stuff in existence. And so I thought, man, I'm going to read this. This is like up my alley. I want to change my life. This book is about changing your life. And what it did for me was halfway through the book, I quit smoking cigarettes. You could smoke in jail back then. And halfway through, I was like, I'm done. I'm taking control of my life. F the dumb shit. I'm finished. And so my clean date that I use it's like, I can't remember the date now because it was so long ago, but it was like either April 20th or 22nd was the day that it was almost like a lightning struck me. And I just like everything changed. And it was in an instant. I mean, I still remember the exact instant where I'm standing on a tier talking to one of my, jailhouse buddies. And I'm like, you know what, Frank? It is the guy's, I still remember his name. I don't want to say his last name for privacy, but I'm looking at him and I'm like, Frank, now you know what? Fuck these cigarettes. And I took half a pack out, handed it to him. I still had like 2 cartons in my cell because that's like money in jail. And that was it. I said, I'm done. I quit, man. And from that moment forward, everything in my life changed. And what it did was the book gave me a confidence that I had never had before. Like I was always looking on the outside for the solutions. I'm looking at church. I'm looking at girlfriends. I'm looking at moving to a different state. I'm looking at the AA and the NA and the rehabs. And the truth is that the power was actually on the inside, but I couldn't use that power if I didn't believe in it, if I didn't believe in myself. And once I was convinced, like, man, I can do whatever the fuck I want. This is my life. I'm the captain of this ship. The winds might be coming from different directions, but I can always set the sails. And once I had that confidence, it was just life-changing, absolutely life-changing.
I love that. I can tell you a story because I think you'll appreciate it. Because life is super interesting. I interviewed another guy on the podcast, probably one of the more successful guys I've ever met in my life. Dude rakes and a lot of money, very successful in business. That wasn't always the case. He was the largest ecstasy dealer on the East Coast for many, many years. Okay. His brother wound up taking the rap for him, his older brother, and kind of like kept him out of jail. Okay.
Wow.
So he is at the lowest of the lows. I mean, he's low. He's feeling guilty because his brother's in jail. They're not selling drugs anymore, so he has no money. So he finds this book. Okay, like seriously, same situation. Book. He doesn't really remember how it came to him. He didn't know if he picked it up at a thrift store, somebody handed it to him. Doesn't matter. Okay. So he's on the East Coast. He's at a restaurant and just kind of looks like a druggie. And he's reading a book on a bench outside of a restaurant. Reading a book. That's all he's doing. This couple walks over. And they start walking up to him and he goes, great. They're gonna say some shit about the Lord or some bullshit. And he's like, I don't want to fucking hear it. And he's trying to get his life together. He said the guy says nothing, grabs the book, writes in it, hands it back to him, and he goes like, oh, great. He's probably like, God bless the Lord, blah, 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 right? He looks down. The author of the fucking book he was reading that lives in San Diego just walked into the restaurant he was reading the book in front of.
No shit.
No shit. And he said to himself, he said, there's something bigger at play here. And he said that night, Lord, I want to be a leader of men. He goes, because this couldn't be happenstance. And he goes, then the Lord proceeded to kick my ever living ass for the next 2 years to tell me that I really wanted it.
That's incredible. That's like the law of attraction. It's like and I don't believe in the woo-woo, like somebody's pulling the strings, but that's, I mean, if you're familiar with like synchronicity, it's like that stuff, that's a whole different, podcast
100%.
right there. But I mean, what happens is if you're observant, you pay attention, you start to notice coincidences that seem like they're not related, but then you notice that there's a pattern, they really are. And then you usually don't notice till after the fact.
Yes.
But as you mature and you become more aware of this, you can start to see them just after the second one. And then, like, synchronicities at play, like, and then you just wait for the next step to occur, like the next direction. And it happens. And it's giving me tingles right now talking about it, because I'm not that kind of guy.
Well, what's interesting, right? And I want to zone in on something, because I love to talk to people about this. I tell everybody all the time when it comes to alcohol addiction, I'm just using alcohol addiction because that was my thing for many years, and drugs you can say too. People think I'm wild to say that it's actually not that hard to stop drinking. And I'm saying that facetiously on purpose. Okay. Because it is. It's more hard to reshape your identity to who you are and who your friends see you as than it is to actually stop drinking.
I agree with that 100%. I mean, when I was in jail, I even changed the music I listened to. I had a little radio, and I started listening to different kind of music because I didn't want to have the triggers. Like now I can listen to the stuff. I can listen to.
I can't listen to Pearl Jam, Yellow Leadbetter.
Right.
Still, because that's what we used to do drugs to. I can't.
Yeah, I get it. See,
but now I don't feel it. But for a couple of years there, I was like, I can't. That song reminds me too much.
I get it. So I changed my music. I changed everything I could. And then, of course, all your friends are going to change anyway, because, the losers like to hang out with losers. And once you start doing good, they don't want to be around you. They want to pull you back down. And
why is that, Mark?
I think that's because there's a couple reasons. One is because they miss you and they like you when you're fucking up like they are, that's selfish. And then also it makes them feel bad because you're just showing that you can do better. Like you don't have to stay a drunk or whatever.
Because it's more about how you make them feel, because you're changing and you're going to leave them.
Right. And I think both of them are selfish, for the person that is still like, drinking or getting high or whatever they're doing. I think that they cut you out of their lives, for selfish reasons, but it's also good for us because we need to cut them too. You can't move forward when you're still looking, when you keep looking backwards, and your friends change as your success changes, your friends change. And there's good and bad with it. Sometimes, friends hold you back. Well, why are you going to do that? You shouldn't open that business. Just keep your job. It's like, you can keep your job. You can make somebody else rich. You can make somebody else's dream come true. I'm going to go make my own dream come true. And it's just different. There's so many different, ways that you can look at it. But, my friends have definitely changed. And I still have, I have a lot of, all my friends, like not all, but most of them drink, a lot of them smoke weed. I don't care. I can sit in a room, you can drink all you want, smoke all the weed. But as soon as you start getting boring and laughing at shit that's not funny, I'm leaving. Because I hate to say this. I know it sounds arrogant and terrible, but nothing is more boring than a bunch of drunks. They're just boring. They're laughing at shit that's not stupid. They're telling the same thing over and over, and they get loud, obnoxious. It's like, I'm out of here, man. So your friends change a little bit just based on that. But the social interactions, as you know, are weird because you go somewhere and people are like, "You want a drink?" Like, "Nah, man, I'm cool." "You sure?" "Yeah, I don't drink." "Why not?" And it's like you're doing something wrong.
Dude, I tell you what, the time that whipped my brain, I was staying at an Airbnb at a surfer guy's house. He was in Mexico fishing, and we got to talking, as I do, talk to everybody through Airbnb. And we started talking about how we were both in recovery. And we just started talking, and he was like, yeah. And so like he comes before we leave, and I meet him in person. And he was addicted to heroin for 10 years. And he looks at me and he shakes my hand and he goes, "Man, you inspire me because you got sober from alcohol." I said, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I said, "You beat heroin." He said, "Bro, heroin, you can beat. Alcohol, it's in your face everywhere." He goes, "The fact that you beat it, I'm more inspired by you." And I was like,
it's true, man. I mean, it's part of our culture. And I'm good with it. Like, this is like, when I say this, I mean, you're going to understand this on one sense, and another you might not. Before I read that book, like when I was on the street, I'd go to A and NA, it was like the one day at a time, and sometimes it's like 1 minute at a time. It's like the urge, like, man, I really, I want a beer. I want to go, like, man, I just got paid, I'm gonna go get an 8-ball, like whatever it is. And after I read that book, I never had the urge.
dude, no. Dude, I'm telling you, bro, you might be my long lost brother. When I made the switch, like when I flipped it, there was one chance 90 days in when I got so excited talking about business with my boy, we forgot to drink, and I never looked back ever again.
And so you didn't have oh my
never.
God.
I never had him once.
I was
so done. I was so done. Like, and the thing is like, everybody says, why'd you quit? And I go, because I got sick of mediocrity.
Yeah. We get sick of feeling like shit. And for me, it's like, I just tell people now, like, I mean, it's kind of like a joke, but I was the first time, I think this is the first time I ever said this. I went out climbing a mountain out. It's called Boundary Peak in Nevada. It's the highest mountain in Nevada. It was like, I don't know, 12,000 feet. And one of the guys that was climbing the mountain, it was like a group of us that all met some online high pointing club for Facebook. And it was like a group of like 8 of us that met out there. And it was like a 70-year-old man. But he's like a mountain goat. I mean, he lives in Colorado. He climbs these freaking mountains up and down for like, 60 years. He was the toughest guy in the group, and he's 70 years old. And it was, like 4, 5, 6 guys, a few women. And we get down to the bottom, and they had some, we had coolers in our car with like sodas and waters and stuff. And they had coolers in their car with like, beer and water. And old man looks at me, he says, "Here, want a beer?" I was like, nah, man. I said, "You don't want me drinking. If I start drinking a half hour from now, everybody will be naked." And then he looks at me and he says, "Here, take mine." So he's a dirty old mountain goat.
Yeah. No,
that's what I tell people. It's like, look, man, if I start drinking, everybody's getting in trouble. And
I think, one of the bigger issues for me, this happened to me. Two different things happened to me. One, my coach, who has helped many men through sobriety, and I got divorced all at the same time, so it was pretty wild. I got laid off like all in the same 10-day stretch. When I got sober, I was like, I don't understand how you're not more excited about being sober. And I was just jamming it down people's throat. And he was like, "Hey, motherfucker, shut up." He goes, "Get off your high horse. Nobody cares. Stop." He goes, "This is what you decided. Live with it." Right. And so I shut up. And I didn't say anything. I didn't talk about my sobriety. I didn't go to 12 steps. So I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't think I did it the right way, all this stuff. Right. And, on the same day, I swear to God, the same day, I got 3 texts from 3 random dudes I hadn't spoke to in like a year and a half, 2 years. And they said, "Hey man, I just want to let you know I haven't had a drink in 3 months because of you." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, I haven't even talked to you. And I go, "Yeah, well, we know that you haven't been drinking, and we follow your Instagram and blah, blah, blah." And they go, "We decided if your dumbass could do it, then we could do it for sure." And it clicked for me. The only way to truly inspire others is to lead your life through example. is to live in your
That's
powers.
why we're here right now. I mean, this is the whole point. This is why I do these. If I've had calls from other podcasts where I've had people from Texas and Nevada and like other parts of Maryland, get in touch with me after listening to it, and it, made a difference in their life. And that's, nothing makes me happier.
Mark, you know what I did? So we just bought a company, 30 employees. The first time we ever bought an existing company. It'll be the first of many. And the other owners, so I'm the CEO, not by choice. That wasn't the plan, but I just didn't like the fire that I saw in the other ones. And I had a way I wanted to introduce myself to the team, and people were like, my other owners were like, "Come on, man, don't do the way that you normally introduce yourself." And I'm like, "Dude, I got to. Like, it's just me. I got to roll."
Sure.
So imagine the first time meeting your new owner, 30 plus employees. They don't know me for shit, and I say, "Hey, I'm Austin. I'm divorced. I used to be an alcoholic, and now I'm sober. Nice to meet you." And like, boom, like 4 guys walked up to me and they go, "Yeah, we're former recoveries. This is amazing that you're our boss now."
Yeah, I think that when you come out with that, because I'm going to tell you, like, to be honest with you, like, I hid that part of my life for years. Like, I didn't want anybody knowing. I didn't want to be judged based on stuff that I did in the 1980s, but people still hold that stuff against you. And in the Baltimore real estate investor market where I'm at, I'm fairly well known, and I speak at a lot of events, and do mentoring, and I've started some Facebook groups that have, like, I think the biggest one has over 17,000 people in it. I just gave that to somebody else last year because I'm kind of phasing out of the real estate thing. But I didn't want, for me in the business world, like, the most important things to me were, like, my reputation.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, being like a decent guy. And I didn't want to tarnish my reputation with people finding out that I wasn't always like I am today. And it was actually during a podcast where, and this was never intended. It was a real estate podcast. And the guy was like, "Well, Mark, take me back to the beginning." I'm like, "Well, how far back you want to go?" And I said, "Well, let me start when I was 12 years old." And then I told that story and I got it out. And it was such a sense of relief to get that monkey off my back, where now I'm not afraid people are going to find out. Like, my close friends knew, but like, I would, that was it. And because the people that I associate with today, for the most part, really can't relate to that lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there are some that can, but even them, it's like, you don't know who they are. I mean, most people aren't running around saying, "Hey, my name's Ed and I've just got 90 days. Like, most people aren't doing that. So you don't know. And so it was just, I love these forums. I mean, you put this thing together, you put all the work into this, you put the time into this, and then you can bring people into other people's cars. You're doing all the work, and it can make differences in people's lives. Just like the 3 guys that, got in touch with you and said, "Hey, man, we got 90 days clean." And like the guys at your business.
What did it for me was a guy I hadn't talked to in 18 years. I used to work with. I ran into him in Austin 6 months ago. And he was like, "Hey, man, I just want to let you know, like, I don't drink anymore. And I started a business because of your podcast." And I'm like, "Dude, what? I haven't even spoke to you in 18 years. And he's like, "Yeah, but I listen to every episode. I love it, man. Thanks." And I'm like,
that's the payback right there. I mean, that makes it all worth it. When you hear stuff like that, like you've made a difference in somebody's life like that, I mean, that makes my day. If somebody sends me a message about something where, I made
my fuel, man. I call it my currency.
As soon as my wife gets home, I tell her, "Hey, let me read you this email I got today." It's like, I mean, it makes my day.
Because, I want to unpack the real estate for a little bit, because you said you're getting out, which I'm intrigued. We'll unpack that in just a minute. Mm-hmm. We've been sold this thing, especially in the last couple of years. You got to burn the boats and you got to go all in real estate. And I can't stand it. Like, my goal is, like, as a joke, which I hate W-2s, but make W-2s great again. Like W-2s bank, you're able to get a loan. My joke is, I'm an entrepreneur. I couldn't get approved for a kayak right now.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. You know what? Well, when I first started, I still had a job. I mean, I was a 1099 guy. I was a contract. At the end of my computer career, I was actually a Microsoft certified trainer, and I was teaching these computer certification classes in colleges like all over Maryland on a contract basis. And so as my rental portfolio grew, I was able to take less and less classes. So as my real estate career grew, my IT career, I just started taking less and less classes until, a month, maybe 2 months before my wife finished school and got a job. I just notified the company, like the headhunter, that, hey man, I'm done. They had enough rentals where, we needed 150 a year to maintain our lifestyle. I was making 50 off the rentals. My wife was going to come right out of college making like 53, 54, 55 plus insurance, which I'd been paying for years. So I only needed to make another 50 to maintain our lifestyle. I could make $50,000 a year picking up trash. I mean, that's, it's like, if you're willing to work, you're not afraid to bust ass or get dirty. It's making $1,000 a week is easy. And so I went full-time real estate, and that business absolutely took off. I mean, we can talk about that later, but that was really what gave me the life that I have now.
And when you said, and we'll do another one soon, another podcast that will cover real estate, which is boring as shit to me. I hate talking. It's really simple, guys. Buy an undervalued asset, make sure it cash flows, and then do it again. Wow, there you go. The secret to the
but you can do it with no money out of your pocket.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's why I'm buying businesses now, because I love the owner finance and all this crazy stuff, and none of my own money.
See, I want to talk to you about that. So,
well, don't worry about it, buddy. You can. It's a 50-year business plan. I got it all mapped out. So when you say you gave up I'm intrigued. So the Facebook group, are you getting out of leading the Facebook groups, and or is it getting out of more passive in real estate?
Yeah, I had over 100 rental units a couple of years ago. Now I'm down to I got 21 left. Some of them were big. It was I had an 18-unit apartment building. Still have a 15-unit. I had a 14-unit, a 13-unit, a 7-unit, a 3-unit, a bunch of houses. And a couple of years ago, I thought, I'm 57 now. I was 55, I guess. Mm-hmm. And the market was going up, and I don't know how far it's going to go. And I got a phone call from a New York investor. It was a cash buyer that wanted to buy 45 of my units for a good price. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this, because if the market goes down, and it might happen tomorrow, it might not happen for 10 years. I don't know, but I don't want to have to stay in this business another 5, 6, 7 years to ride it back to the top. And so after I sold those, I just started selling more. I got another one I'm selling this Thursday. And then I started lending the money out. Most people, if you're not in real estate, you don't know what this is. But hard money lenders typically lend their money out from 10 to 18%. Short-term loans, you get a mortgage on the house, you get a personal guarantee. So it's pretty safe. And now I'm lending my money out at 12%. And
is that the vision for the rest of your career?
Yeah, because I'm selling the rest. Yeah, I just want to do that because it's so easy. And
my thing is very simple. I want to be the bank. And in my later careers, I want to be the bank, but more importantly, okay, I'll give you the quickest version I can of why we're doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Okay, because what I'm doing is very exhausting, and the vision is so big, it would scare 90%, 99% of most people. Okay. But I made a conscious decision with myself that this is what we were going to be doing. I had a 6-month talk with myself every morning on my walk, and I checked in with myself to make sure that what I was getting into, I wanted to. I knew what I was doing. So I just turned 40 last year, and I said, give me 10 years, give me 11 years. I'm going to build as much as I humanly can, as big as I can. I'm going to impact as many people as I can. I'm going to make as much money as I can. We're going to build this conglomerate, which we're calling a movement, not a business, right? And the only reason why we're doing that is, one, to inspire communities, but I want to start an entrepreneurship school. And I had trouble in school.
Smart.
I dropped out of college 3 times. I'm not a fan. I have a photographic memory. I don't care. None of that stuff makes sense to me. Well, we're doing the same thing in trades. We're actually creating our own training program for trades. And I'm starting a podcast with it. And we're going to infuse atomic habits and mindset and how to win friends and influence people back into the trades, teach them life skills and investing and stuff like that. Right. So we're going to move away from profit trade schools, which are useless. And then we're going to create our own, which is going to attach to the school. So all of my employees of all the companies can send their kids to the entrepreneurship school. So that's kind of premise, right? And then from 50 on, I want to start a fund that's an incubator for middle school and high school kids in their businesses. And we're going to mentor them with all my owners and my consultants, and then invest in their businesses and help them go on and go. That's the basic.
Man, that's a really fantastic vision. I mean, because what I'm hearing is the part about helping other people, like,
Yeah,
because you can help people one-on-one, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to help more people, the only way you can scale it is by putting together systems like you're talking about. And a lot of people can't do that.
The only way you can, one of my favorite quotes is like, you don't actually become a leader until you teach a leader to lead somebody else, right? And it's like, and like the thing is like when I got into one-on-one coaching like 5 years ago, I was like, man, this is amazing. Like I love my one-on-one clients. I help their family and everything, but like I need bigger. Like I need bigger. And that's where small businesses come in, because then now you infect the people that work for you in the communities, and it just trickles down. And I realized that two things. One, I'm not selling anybody anything anymore. Either you want to get on with the vision or you get off. There's really no other way around it. And the second thing is I only want to run races in my life that I can't win. That's my new thing. Because I realized, I said this on a different podcast. I realized that the reason I got uninspired is because the mountain wasn't big enough.
I can understand that. I can see that.
Now, hear me out though. There's also a good chance that at 50 years old, I'll disappear for 6 months to Thailand and Nepal with my kids and my wife, and then come back with 70 different ideas. But here's what's great about this idea. This idea is big enough that other people can live inside of it and carry on the torch. And I might have a different role in it when I get to that thing. And one of the things, one of my mentors of my coaching group that taught me a lot about coaching, I said, it's very powerful to know you're building something that one day is going to get so big that it's not going to need you.
But isn't that the goal?
It is the goal. You have to make peace with your ego.
Yeah, that's for me. Fortunately, I haven't had that issue. I mean, for the stuff that I've created, like the Maryland Investors Network, when I saw that I was going to start phasing out of this business, I looked for, like, okay, who do I trust that I can give this to? Because I don't make any money off of it, but you get a lot of like respect, like people, name recognition, stuff like that. And so you do get intangible assets, like you do benefit from it, but just it doesn't show up on a spreadsheet or QuickBooks. But I found a guy that could take that over, and he did. And I had a couple of other groups that I gave the same guy, and he's running them better than I did. But the whole point is that you want to create something where after I'm gone, it's still out there providing value to people.
Well, that's what this podcast is.
Yeah, no, right. I mean,
that's what this podcast is. I'm about to do my 500th episode, and look, guys, whoever listening to this podcast, you can ask my producer. About 6 months last year, I was getting my face pounded in business, and I wasn't really feeling the podcast, but I still showed up for it, and I still did it. Well, now the energy's back, the excitement is back, and I realized that if you truly want to be the 1% and you want to do better, you got to do it when you don't want to.
It's like that with everything. Diet, exercise, relationships with your spouse, like whatever. It's like, even when things don't.
Because I realized that consistency is something you can't consistency will run the show no matter what.
It does.
And that's how I got sober. Was I said, you've broken 2,000 promises to yourself. Let's keep this one.
And not just yourself, but everybody else. It's like, I'm sure there was a lot of damage, during that period of time, family stuff and job stuff and health stuff, that's just, we just don't think about that when we're doing it. We're just thinking 100%. About, we're in that moment. It's all about us, and, I'll spend my rent money on Coke and I'll worry about it next week. Well, how's that going to happen?
When you scale to 100 units, which is probably everybody's dream, what my favorite question to ask is, what was easier than you thought? And then I'll ask the next one.
What was easier than I thought? I nothing comes to mind because I was so driven and confident in myself. I was confident, and it wasn't like a false sense of confidence, like I'm going to go beat up Muhammad Ali or something. I mean, it wasn't something stupid like that, but it was just like, I'm going to work as hard as I have to. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to conserve my money. I'm not going to, make 300 grand this year and run out and buy $100,000 car. Like, I'm just going to live below my means. Like, I was very disciplined. And I think that if you can be, discipline is huge in business, and, just to create like this wealth, like this, generational wealth that everybody talks about today, takes a lot of discipline, because we all want it now. It's like, I want a big house now. I want a nice car now. And it's hard to just say, look, what my priorities are, I got to put this money into my business so I can grow into something where, when I was 50 years old, I was working 2 or 3 hours a day. I got 100 doors and I'm working 2 or 3 hours a day because I put all the systems in place. And right now I'm 1,600 miles from home. I still got 22 doors. It'll be 21 on Thursday. And I can run 100% of my business from 1,600 miles away. And today I probably work, if you added up all the minutes, I don't know, 4 hours a week. And yeah, but it's discipline. It's just, and it's also like, this because you're a coach. Like, you can figure everything out on your own, and it's going to take this long. But if you get a coach, you can shorten that learning curve down to this, like a significant amount. And then what can you do with that? If you can say, instead of having to reinvent the wheel, your coach shows you the wheel, then you can build it up a lot faster with a lot less mistakes, a lot less headaches. And so anyway, that's one of the benefits of coaching, which is probably another topic as well.
I think that's great. And now, what was harder than you thought?
Man, finding the people to do the work, finding people like, and I'm talking about the construction people, the HVAC guy, the carpenters, all that, finding people that are going to show up on time, do a good job at a fair market rate on a consistent basis. That was the hardest part, is the people. I can find good real estate deals all day. I can find good tenants all day. It's finding the people to do the work. And I did build up a great team, which is why I'm able to, I can buy another 100 houses in the next month and have a team in place that could take care of just about everything. But that takes a lot of time, and you got to go through a lot of duds before you hit the home run. You strike out a lot before you hit a home run. Truth.
And what I tell everybody, because I've coached Airbnb for years, because that's one of my specialties. I've done all hotels and all around the country. I tell people not to launch an Airbnb in the state they live in, and they think I'm absolutely insane. And I said, no, because if it's near you, you'll be forced to go over there. And if you have it away, you'll be forced to be a good owner.
That's a great, man. That is a really great thing for Airbnbs. Because I tell I still do some coaching with real estate stuff, but I tell them, like, listen, like, you got no business going to Home Depot. You got no business, like, none of this. Like,
dude, you're talking, dude, if I have so many stories about windows climbing in at 2 a.m., going to Home Depot, cleaning the toilet. Dude, yes. I was working 2 jobs. I was flying out once a month. I was cleaning 3 Airbnbs, thinking I'm saving myself so much money. And my mentor goes, let's do the math.
Right.
And he goes, oh, you're making $2.12 an hour. And I almost threw up in my mouth.
Right. But that's what I tell people. It's like, listen, you got to be able to run I don't care if you're running properties like 3 blocks down the street. You need to be able to run it from your basement or your office, because once you can do that, your basement or office could be 1,000 miles away. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you can't run your business, if you have to be hands-on like that, then you'll never be able to move to Florida or California or wherever you want to go. You got to be able to run it remotely from your house, and then you can go anywhere. And that's, what I've done. I've been doing it for close to about 1.5 years now. My wife's a travel nurse now.
I love it. So if people want to find out more about you, they want to connect with you, how would they do that?
It's probably my email address, mark@markowens.com. And that's probably the best way. I mean, I've got a Facebook page and all that stuff, but it's mostly dumb stuff on there.
I love it. Well, guys, if you like this episode, send it to a friend, and we'll see you next time.